Hello everyone and welcome to 12 Days of Sketchmas. For today we're going to be working on the prompt Candy Cane Critter. Now there's a lot of ideas that I had for this since I was massively inspired by candy canes. If you don't know what these are sort of like rock candy that's been sort of twisted, normally with a peppermint flavour. It's one of my all-time favourite like holiday themed snacks. Like we'll always have these up on the tree, and I really wanted to do a animal sort of inspired by this design. Now I had a lot of ideas, but one idea I just could not shake was a mouse. Like it's something that's very prevalent in lots of say Christmas poems. Is even included in the story of the Grinch, and it was just one of those that I had the idea, and once I had the idea I couldn't shake off the idea. I had a rough idea of how I wanted the mouse to be sort of designed. All I knew is I had to have a peppermint tail and it had to have really big oversized ears. So you can see me here in this sort of sketchbook. I'm sort of like sketching out all my ideas for what I like and what I dislike, trying out a few different like sort of designs of mice, maybe something that's a little bit more realistic, something that's a little bit more cartoony, and that's sort of what I'm doing here. I am sort of trying out my ideas. So this is Pepper the mouse. They are a Christmas holiday themed critter and they live in the candy cane forest. Very cheesy, very fantasy, love it. Great. And the best idea about candy cane critter is that you can do lots of different things. I was thinking originally of a deer that had like massive candy cane themed horns, or a fox that had like a candy cane tail. Like would have been an Arctic fox with a candy cane tail. There was a few other designs that I had in mind as well, but I just couldn't shake off the idea of a mouse. And this would make a really cute sculpture as well. I was thinking about all the other things that I could do with this little critter. It'd make such a cute like little Christmas ornament, or it'd make a really cute like figurine, sticker pack. Like once I'd started, I couldn't stop. So with these designs, as you can see, I'm sort of trying to work out what I wanted. I kind of liked the second one that I drew with the massive like Dumbo sized ears, but I felt it was just a little bit too cartoony, so I wanted to try something a little bit different. I actually really love this third one, like an awful lot. For those wondering what I'm using here, I'm just using a simple biro pen as well as some pencils. Now these are the Faber-Castell, and this is just a color grip pencil. I used to have these as a kid and recently found them again, and they're one of my favorite sketching pencils to play around with. I love them and the W.H. Smith pencils, but they're sort of like really fun to play around with, and these you can use as watercolors as well because they're water soluble. So I've been having an awful lot of fun with this. I really liked this sort of third design because it was a good mixture between like cartoony and realism that I was sort of going for, and it gave me a lot of ideas of what I wanted. Another thing I couldn't decide was the pattern on its coat. I knew that it couldn't be a completely white mouse because peppermints have lots of bandings on them, so I was trying to work out a way that I could include the banding up on the critter itself. I really liked the ideas that the paws were sort of like dipped in red, and I was like, okay, so how can I sort of work with that and play around with that sort of idea. Lots of like, it may not seem like a lot of experimentation, but this is just me getting the idea down and working out like the sort of style that I'm going for. As for the scarf, I felt like the character, if it was just the mouse on its own, looked a little bit too plain, and the scarf would add a line of action to it. So when it's moving, the scarf would move as well, and it adds this sort of like element to the mouse that isn't just, oh, this is a standard character design. It adds this sort of like, it adds character to the character design, which sounds really silly for me to say that, but it adds this sort of like, oh, this person lives in a cold environment. Maybe they like to snuggle up in that scarf when they are like sleeping, and like it gives you that sort of like it gives you a little bit more information behind the character design and lets you feel a little bit more excited for it as well. In the end, I really liked this sort of idea of the mouse hugging the candy cane, and this is sort of like what I kind of went with for my finalized design. So that's what I'll be doing after I've done all my sketching and working out. This was just a little fun way for me to sort of like add the line of action, add the scarf in, have the tail up on show, because the main thing I really want it to be a point of like contestation, a point of like orientation up on the actual illustration itself, whilst that tail, it was very important to me that that tail was significantly candy caned, because you know that's what inspired me to do this entire illustration. I was thinking about how a candy cane is hooked at the end, and I was like, that's a tail, it has to be a tail. And you could do that as a cat, you could be a pepper cat, it could be a peppermint dog, it could be anything. And that's the beauty of character design. You can all take the same prompt and do something different. So I'd be really interested to see your candy cane critters and what you would create using the same theme. I'm really loving doing Sketchmas, and this is only day 2 of it, and this was possibly one of the more fun projects that I worked on. I love designing characters, and I really love designing critters, and I use critters as a sort of form as like an animal that's sort of like got personality. You would divulge it, say if you watch Disney movies, like the sort of animals, say like the mice in Cinderella, they are a character. They're not just a small animal, and I would call them critters because they have a little bit more personality to them. Not to be confused with the Critical Role critters, that's a whole different family in general, but hi, if you're also a critter as well. When I was trying to come up with this design, I really wanted to try and inject as much personality into the character as possible. In the end, I decided to go for very soft lines, and this was as a part of the illustration, I decided to use pencil lines. This allows the character design to look a lot softer in its illustration instead of doing pen lines. Now, pen lines can be very clean, but there's something about the texture of pencil lines that can just give that extra soft feeling, and these are quite soft pencils as well, so it really enhanced that. Even if I made them extra sharp, they were still going to have that really soft crumbly feeling to them. These are done by the same company that make the Polychromos, so and I stinking love Polychromos, but sometimes, you know, you can't always afford to get a full Polychromos set, so I wouldn't recommend these over Polychromos. Actually, they're a good pencil, but they're not quite Polychromos level or Prismacolor level. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm just putting down the base of markers now. Because these pencils are water reactive, they are going to react with the alcohol marker, as you can see, but I was really hoping on that because I wanted to add lots of texture into my flat colouring. There's a really interesting technique you can do with alcohol pencils and water reactive alcohol markers and water reactive pencils, that you can create this sort of like really interesting smudging effect where the colour like sort of bleeds into it. Now, not everyone likes that, but I really think that sometimes if you're going in particular for like fur, or if you're going for something that has a lot of texture, it can help in a lot of ways. So of course we've got the standard red peppermint ears. I decided to give her some red eyes, and of course the striped banding up on her arms and legs. If I was to go back and sort of change this, I would change like the sort of direction that her head is in. I would have her facing more towards us, looking at us instead of looking off, just because it would make the character design that little bit, you know, extra cute, and would have the character sort of interacting with us instead of looking away from us. I decided to give her a burgundy sort of like scarf, trying to keep within that red colour scheme, and her fur isn't pure white, it's actually slightly pinky. This is just so that it added a little bit more texture in there and kept true to that red tone. So I'd actually be very interested to see if you had the prompt candy cane critter, what would you do? And if you had a peppermint mouse, like what would you do? I'm really interested and really excited to hear people's thoughts actually, because there's a lot of different directions that you can sort of like play around with and have a look at with these sort of designs. And this I just thought was a really fun way to work on character design and sort of like share my ideas of what I'm thinking of when I'm working on them. As I said, there was lots of different ways that we could have gone with this character design in general, but I'm really happy with what the final results are. After I've done everything, just to sharpen up a few areas, I'm using biro. I didn't want very clean lines, and you can get some very beautiful textured lines with the biro itself. It doesn't have, like, it depends on which one you get, but the one I'm using is a Bic, and it sort of has like this like textured way to when the line goes down, and it just adds that little extra to the illustration that previously it did not have before with just the pencils. The issue I had with the pencils was they weren't going quite dark enough, so where I really wanted to darken certain areas, it just wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So it's just me sort of like lining up, double checking everything, making sure like all my shadows are sort of like lined up. You could really have fun with sort of character design, and my recommendation is, if you are wanting to do character design in general, it's best to when you've got your finalized idea, that's absolutely perfect, but it's really good to show your workings out, how you got to that finalized idea. And this is a really good tip for anyone who wants to, say, fill up their sketchbooks if they're applying to work. Say if you want to work in character design, you want to show like sort of the influences and how you got to the finalized product. So if you actually look up in a few art books, you'll see that they have lots of branches out of character design before they even get out to the finalized product, and that's before you have your final ideas. You sort of explore around to try and get like a finalized product. I could have explored a lot more in here. I could have done a lot more stylized sort of illustration. I could have tried out a lot more different styles with this, and that's where you can branch out and you can work a lot more. So, candy cane critter. I chose a mouse. I could have chosen a deer. I could have chosen an Arctic fox. I could have chosen a reindeer. Would have been really cool, because then it could have related back to the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer poem. But I just sort of love this sort of idea of Pepper being this tiny mouse who likes to run through and put peppermint canes up on people's trees, and that's how you magically get peppermint canes up on your tree. I don't know. I'm a big old softie for little children's stories, and I think Pepper is a really cute character, and I really would like to do some more work with her. So after I'd done that and had finalised it, I just wanted to add like a splash effect background. This is super simple to do if anyone ever wants to do it. It's one of my favourite techniques. You want some really saturated watercolours. You want to really saturate over your watercolours, add your water, and then drop the colour in. When you drop the colour in, it sort of mixes up the paints in general. So you can see here I'm using like pink and orangey tones to sort of like create like and enhance the colours, and this just makes the character pop out from the background. I do this a lot with commissions. If I'm doing watercolour commissions and no one specified a background, I'll just add a splash effect up on the background layer, as long as it relates back to the colours that's within the character, just because it makes a picture go from simple white background to full illustration. And here we have our candy cane critter Pepper. I really hope you enjoyed this and sort of enjoyed like my ideas behind like character design, and this was really fun to do, and I've been having a lot of fun with Sketchmas. I really have, and I can't wait for you to watch the rest of the videos. So every single day for the next 12 days from the 13th to the 24th I will be posting a video, and tomorrow's will be themed under cozy hot chocolate. So I do hope you're excited to watch that, because I really enjoyed making it. Have a wonderful day, folks. Love what you do, keep on drawing, and as always, folks, stay creative.